Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to my story, episode 2. Before I start, can I just ask everybody to like, comment, share, and obviously please subscribe to the channel. It would really help with the algorithm and getting this stuff out there, the reason I'm doing this is because I think it's really important. So, thank you, first of all, and thanks for watching. I couldn't believe the reaction I've had from my first video. Has been pretty wonderful. So yeah, big thank you to everybody who watched and commented and liked it. It really helps. And yeah, please, if you haven't watched it, go back and watch the first episode. I encourage you to start at the beginning. It would help for context. So where were we? I guess, okay, so after I suppose a few weeks, I guess Murray had been a bit distant. We both had. We were conscious of the situation. We wanted to make sure that, everybody involved had, the chance to have their wishes respected and being just respectful to the fact that there were a lot of people and a lot of emotions and potential judgment. Not that I've ever really cared about what people think of me, but more just being or trying to be decent about it and conscious that, yeah, there are emotions and feelings attached. Anyway, we started dating after a few weeks. She and I we were like, how am I trying to describe this? I guess we were like magnets. We couldn't separate. We were just stuck to each other. We were inseparable. We went on some dates, and very early on, it was clear that it was going to get serious. I think for both of us, we knew that very, very early on. I knew the moment I met Mariana how I felt about her. I guess if I ask myself now, I knew I loved her from the moment I met her. And that moment we shared our first kiss, and yeah, it's very intense. And I'd been around enough to know and recognise how I felt and what dating was like for me. Sorry, that was a bit of knuckle tapping. As I said, we were magnetised, and we were always very honest to each other about how we felt and about our history of relationships. And obviously we were completely honest, and we didn't hide a thing. And we both had some difficult relationships in the past and stuff that just hadn't worked, and stuff that was unfortunately a bit worse than hadn't worked. But we both felt, and as people, we both felt it was really important to be honest and be yourself, and brutally sometimes so. But yeah, we told each other really, really early on. I think it was probably within a few weeks, maybe a month. But like I said, we both knew, and we both felt so passionate about each other. It was a natural thing to do. It was the fact that we couldn't spend time apart. When I think about how we were together, it was also the longing for each other when we were apart. I'd never experienced anything like it, and knowing how much we loved each other, knowing how much we felt, and the intensity and the passion that we had, I felt like I belonged again. Well, not again. For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged to something better than or bigger than just myself. And I know Mary felt the same way. It was like a fairy tale, and for me, I suppose I dreamt about this sort of stuff. I dreamt about this kind of relationship as a boy, and I grew up hoping that I'd have that. And I suppose when my parents broke up, I was about 12. It hurt seeing that fail, and then I think it even reinforced a bit more solidity in my dream, and that I would try and put that as a priority when I felt it was time, which I guess I did. This is a bit hard. Within a few months, I started to recognise how we were seen as a couple. You know, the fact that people would often come up to us, mostly me, and certainly that I was people that I was friends with would come up and make a comment of, you know, you're inspiring the two of you. You're so sort of raw and brutal with your feelings for each other, and yeah, like I said, it was unfiltered. I'm proud of that. Like I said, it was one of those relationships. I suppose you'd often see people and you'd either react in one way or the other. It's kind of polarized, and some people would be like, "Oh no, it's public display of affection. We don't want to see that." But yeah, I never doubted how we were with each other, not for a second. Um, so within 3 months, we met each other's friends. We started introducing each other to our family members, and you know, we were honest with them about what we thought about each other, and how we thought that was going to go. And shortly after that, which Mariana moved into the room that I'd been renting after about, I suppose it was about 3 months. She moved from that tiny little shared room that she was in. And then we'd talk for hours. I mean, we'd giggle, just kind of beaming with love for each other. We'd share stories. You know, stories of growing up and memories of being kids, and how it was for Murray moving to different countries, and for me, you know, after my parents separated, we moved cities. We moved to a town, then a city, and yeah, it was nice because I'd never had the opportunity to share that kind of stuff really on that kind of level, or never really felt safe enough to do so. Our beliefs, and like I said, it was the first time I wasn't afraid to really open up. Yeah, we talked about our past lives. We talked about the fact that we felt a connection to lives gone past that we'd lived, and we always believed. I mean, we both spoke about this often, that we'd actually shared each other in those lives past, and we felt that kind of memory of that feeling. It's hard to explain, and if you don't believe it, fair enough. But that's how we felt. Murray was deeply spiritual. She was born in Sao Paulo in Brazil, and she had a very strong connection with an ancient religion that came over from the slaves in Africa. And they believed in deities. They believed that these deities occupy part of your soul, and they play a part in often multiple deities in one person, and they play a part in your destiny and how that's formed. And she believed in it, and she'd been involved in it since she was a very young girl. Her mother believed as well, and had, you know, spent her life kind of devoting herself to that faith. And I always felt that I there was something missing in mine. And I've only recently found my faith, and I've only recently started studying, and you know, I'm Christian, so I go to church on a Sunday, and I sing, and you know, our pastor reads from the Bible, and we get quotes, and we get the chance to meet afterwards, and it was wonderful. The first time I went, it was absolutely magnificent. You know, the feeling of meeting people that are so welcoming. So I got that. I mean, I didn't perhaps understand it back when Murray and I were together, but it was important. It was important to her. The fact that she was going to eventually, and she'd apparently been chosen as a young girl, was going to go and help people as a guide, and then they would have her support. Each of the individuals that were under this sort of faith had access to a guide, and they'd call if obviously they weren't around or not in the country, or they'd go there and do their readings and do their prayers and dances and songs and singing. Yeah, they believed in the idea of something being greater than them, like I do now. It was important to her, important to her mum. And her sister, although she didn't go as deep in her faith, she was definitely part of the family, and all of the girls, and rather the women in that family were of the same faith. One or two to a higher degree than the other, but they believed. There was one occasion where remember, I remember sleeping in the middle of the night. This is in the room where Mary had recently moved into with me. And I woke in the middle of the night, and I turned to her, and there was a woman lying next to me that I didn't really recognise. I mean, it was obviously Mariana, but she was staring at the ceiling, and she just had a sort of a, not a dull look, but a sort of stern kind of look. I mean, I thought she was asleep with her eyes open initially, and I sort of said something to her, and she turned and she looked at me, and I recognised it wasn't maybe the Mary that I'd been used to. And she said sort of sternly, "What do you want with her?" And I sort of took a bit of a move back, and I said, "Mary, I want to love you. I want to take care of you. I want to spend the rest of my life doing those two things. I want us to have a family. I want us to be together for as long as we can." And she sort of made this, and then closed her eyes, went back to sleep, and I'm sort of there like for a few minutes trying to process the thing, and eventually I went back to sleep, and then woke up in the morning, and I asked her, I said, what was that about, babe? What, do you remember this? And she said no. But then she asked what she'd said and what I'd said, and she sort of giggled, and she said, "Yeah, that fits. That makes a bit of sense." I didn't really know what to make of it, but yeah, she was that in love with her faith that it made sense to her, and she was totally fine with it. In fact, she liked it. She liked the idea that she had a protector inside of her, this deity that was. That's how. To be fair, I accepted it, and I didn't even question it. It wasn't something at all to be questioned. She felt so strongly about it and so certain of it. Yeah, I think we'll leave that there. That's a good point to stop. We will continue in episode 3. Please stay tuned. I'm going to be uploading every week, so remember, like, share, comment, subscribe. It would really help, and I'm really grateful. And I hope you're enjoying the story so far, and we will see you in a week. Thanks a lot.